Good morning, everyone. My name is Jason Leach, and we have the news briefing this morning. Sam is not with us today, but we're going to kick things off with Lieutenant Andy Stephenborn with some updates from Camp Postcard and this weekend. So, go ahead.
Good morning, Lieutenant Andrew Stephenborn, A-N-D-R-E-W, last name S-I-E-B-E-N-B-O-R-N. Just wanted to talk about a super cool event that the Sioux Falls Police Department's been honored to partner with for now. It's the second year that we've done it, and it really, you hear Mayor Tanakin talks about One Sioux Falls and what that means to our community, and we took part in the Camp Postcard, which is a partnership with us and the Volunteers America, along with some other entities within the city, and it really, I think if you think of that One Sioux Falls mantra, really speaks to that, where this camp isn't put on unless there's a lot of other people outside, not just with the Sioux Falls Police Department, but other entities within the city that step up. And what Camp Postcard is, for those that don't know, Postcard stands for Peace Officers Striving to Create and Reinforce Dreams. And what we do is we identify sixth graders who are going into their seventh grade year that would benefit from going to essentially what is a summer camp. Trying to find those that maybe wouldn't have these opportunities due to socioeconomic factors or just anything, and get them to a time where they can have fun at a summer camp. And the whole tenet of the camp is that the camp counselors during camp are law enforcement officers that go out there and live the full week at camp with the students. So this year, I believe our rough estimate is final count as far as students that attended was about 45 campers. Like I said, this is a huge partnership with the Sioux Falls Police Department and the Volunteers of America. And so I specifically want to thank Dennis Hoffman from VOA. When we pitched this idea, he was nothing but supportive. And then I also want to specifically thank Tracy Phelps and Sarah Hansen from the VOA, who helped spend most of the year getting this camp put together. This camp is 100% donation funded. It's not a cheap endeavor. So again, huge thank you to all the businesses, all the individuals that donated money to the VOA to fund this camp, because you're all a part of a week that I can really tell you is life-changing for these students that go out there. Not only is it life-changing for the students, but it's also life-changing, I believe, for the officers that get out there. This year, we were able to add another incredible partner that really helped us execute camp more effectively, and that was there's a junior mentor component, and our junior mentors this year all came from Trey Ministries. And so I want to thank Sandy and her team from Trey for lending us those junior mentors from the week. We had the idea for Camp Postcard, started a couple years ago, and then COVID got in the way, and then we pitched the idea again under Chief Burns, and then now under Chief Toom, to commit ourselves to staffing this camp and to having the resources to go to this camp, to build the relationship with these young men and young women that come to this camp. One of the cool things that does happen with this camp is VOA actually does surveys, both pre-camp, post-camp, 3, 6, 9, 12 months post-camp, and asks the students about what they believe their relationships with law enforcement are. And I can tell you that data that they've gotten from last year's camp, and I'm confident that the data that you get from this year's camp is telling you that because of camp and the bonds that are formed, that their thoughts, their impressions, their relationships, and their willingness to reach out to law enforcement in a time of need all significantly goes up. There's a few cool stories that I'll touch on at camp. I think it's pretty, first and foremost, thanks to the parents that entrusted us with their children there to have a good time at camp. But I think it's really cool when potentially, there's some kids at camp that their parents have had some law enforcement contact, but now they're out as kids, having positive contact with law enforcement. And there's kids that come from a tough background. I know of a kid who came there essentially literally with one extra pair of underwear and one t-shirt. we were able to give him an incredible experience. And VOA has some other programs and partnerships that they bring on, and young men and women that come up to camp in those experiences, we're able to get them outfitted with clothes and stuff for the week and send them home with clothes and all that good stuff. I want to just read one quote from a parent here real quick, just to kind of not just give you my words and where you're taking it from me, but a parent sent this to us, and it said, "I just want to thank all of you for this experience. I can't express my gratitude enough to each one of you. I know my son had a great time, and I can't wait to see him. You all built relationship with these kids, and you sure gave them a safe, fun, and memorable and most unique experience. Thank you all for everything that you did over the last 5 days. I'm blessed. We're internally blessed by people like you." So we'll look to continue this camp. But like I said, this camp doesn't happen unless it's an entire team effort for multiple entities across Sioux Falls. So like I said, it really fits into the Mayor's One Sioux Falls motto. And again, thank you to the Volunteers of America and our friends at Trey Ministries, along with the staff and folks up at Camp Neesodak at Lake Enemy Swim that really let us put on an incredible camp. I'll turn it back over to Lieutenant Leach.
Thanks, Andy. Again, Jason Leach, Jason Leach, Leach. There was a lot of activity since Friday, so we have a few things to go over today. I picked out some of the highlights for us to go over. So when we start looking at aggravated assaults, we're going to talk about the aggravated assault on June 11th at 10:22 p.m. in the area of West 35th Street and South Duluth Avenue first. In this call, our officer was out investigating a hit-and-run accident report. Somebody had called in and said their vehicle had just been hit. They heard it. The officer responded. The victim of the vehicle pointed the officer down the street and said there was a car down the street that he should check on. The officer went down the street, located that vehicle. I believe it was in the yard of another house. The officer contacted a person that was with the vehicle and started talking to them and conducting his investigation for the hit-and-run accident. This vehicle had fresh damage on it, consistent with the damage on the other vehicle. So he was investigating that hit-and-run accident. At the time of conducting that investigation, an uninvolved individual from a residence came outside and started yelling at our officer. He was yelling at the officer to leave his property, demanding that he leave his property. The officer and this other individual from the vehicle were standing on the public sidewalk at the time, conducting that investigation. As the officer gave that individual instructions just to go back in the house while he conducted his investigation, the suspect then made a threat that said, "I'm going to make you leave my property." I went back in the house. Our officer continued to talk with the individual he was with. The suspect then came out of his house with a long gun. The officer wasn't sure if it was a shotgun or a rifle at that point, but identified it as a firearm. The suspect was holding it in his hands and demanded that the officer leave. Our officer, knowing that he now had contact with another citizen that he was conducting that investigation with, sought his safety and that citizen's safety, got them behind the patrol vehicle, called for extra assistance from our responding officers. As officers responded, the individual continued to yell at them. He could hear that he called out that their police radios were calling and talking, so he obviously could see from our officers that were in their police uniforms in marked patrol cars that they were police officers. He continued to point what the officers believed was a flashlight at them. And as they set up a perimeter, they gave commands. They did see that the suspect had the long gun in his hand still. They gave commands for him to drop the gun. He had taken off running at one point to try and jump over a fence, but dropped the gun. Officers were able to get him to comply and take him into custody. We're happy that our officers are safe. We're happy that nobody in the public was injured in this. The flashlight they believed was shining at them was actually a weapon-mounted light that was on the end of that rifle. There was no flashlight located. There was no cell phone light or any other light source located on that suspect or in that backyard. So that individual had been pointing that rifle at our officers. So we're happy that no one was injured and our officers safely resolved that situation. That suspect was arrested for 3 counts of aggravated assault on law enforcement, 3 counts of attempt to commit a felony with a firearm, possession of a loaded firearm while intoxicated. The suspect's first name is Tristan, Tristan, middle of Allen, Allen, last of Deck, Deck. He's a 27-year-old male from Sioux Falls. Subsequent to that, the other individual that we had contacted for the hit and run was arrested for DUI and hit and run. So kudos to our officers for their quick reaction to keep themselves safe, keep the other citizen that was involved in that hit and run accident safe, and all the rest in the neighborhood safe. So we'll move on from that one. We had another aggravated assault. This one was June 11th at 8:23 p.m. in the area of Russell and North Louise Avenue. This was a subject that was looking in some windows of a residence or apartment, and the resident confronted that individual, told him to leave. That individual returned with a large hammer and started swinging it at the resident. He did strike the resident in the arm once, but the resident was able to avoid several blows from that hammer, but did receive an injury to his arm. The suspect retreated to his vehicle and fled the scene. Officers were able to locate the vehicle, stop the vehicle, and place that subject under arrest for aggravated assault. That individual, first name is Blue, B-L-U-E, middle of Anthony, A-N-T-H-O-N-Y, last of Davis, D-A-V-I-S. He's a 46-year-old male from Sioux Falls, and he was lodged for aggravated assault. Another aggravated assault of note was from June 9th at 4:21 p.m. This was in reference to the incident that happened on North Minnesota Avenue and J.C. Lane near the airport, Sioux Falls Regional Airport. The call came in for a male threatening people with a knife. The on-duty Minnehaha County deputy that's assigned to the airport responded and called for assistance. That subject then fled on a bicycle from the airport area, and several of our officers intercepted that individual and stopped him. He was non-compliant when our officers interacted with him. He was agitated, he was clenching his fists, he would not comply with commands. The officers gave him distance, worked to de-escalate the situation, continued to give commands. The suspect started rifling through his pockets and came out with a couple different knives. He ended up throwing those knives at our officers. No one was injured. Our officers used their less lethal options to try and subdue the suspect. After a few attempts at that, a taser was deployed and it was effective, and they were able to take the suspect into custody without any further injuries to officers, to the public, or to that individual. That individual was identified as William, common spelling, middle name of D-A-R-O-L, and last name of Crossdog, C-R-O-S-S-D-O-G. He's a 55-year-old male from Sioux City, Iowa. This individual was lodged at the Minnehaha County Jail for 3 counts of aggravated assault on law enforcement, obstructing police officers, fleeing police, and also placed on emergency mental hold. The next one we're going to talk about is a weapons violation call. This one stemmed from the area of 22nd and Main Avenue on 6/10 at roughly 5:42 p.m. This was the call where the car was called in as a suspect firing a gun out of the window in the area of 22nd and Main Avenue. Our officers immediately responded to the scene and located the vehicle that was given. A description of the vehicle was given by the victim of an area resident provided that information. Our officers located a vehicle matching that description. That vehicle took off at a high rate of speed, driving recklessly, eluding our officers. Due to the high potential of injury and danger to the public, they did not pursue that individual or that vehicle, but then later found it abandoned at near 33rd and Summit Avenue. With the assistance of Augustana University security, they were able to relay to our officers descriptions of 3 individuals that exited that vehicle and which direction they had last been seen. With that information, our officers set up a perimeter and located all 3 of those individuals. One of the individuals was still in possession of a loaded firearm. The three individuals that were taken into custody, the first one is Timothy, Timothy, middle of Joseph, common spelling, and last name is Cervantez. He's a 23-year-old male from Sioux Falls. He was arrested and lodged for possession of a firearm by a felon, reckless discharge of a firearm, possession of a firearm by a former drug offender, discharge of a firearm from a moving vehicle, fleeing police, and warrants. The second individual was identified as Matthew, Matthew, middle name is Patrick, common spelling, and last of Karschik. He's a 25-year-old male from Sioux Falls. He was lodged for obstructing a police officer, aggravated eluding, and fleeing police. And the third and final suspect from the car, Alexander, Alexander, middle of Marcus, Markus, last of Cool, Cool. He's a 25-year-old male from Sioux Falls, and he was lodged for an out-of-county warrant. So looking at our calls from this weekend, obviously it was a busy weekend. There was a lot of activities going on around Sioux Falls. Going down through the rest of the call list here, those were the big calls, the big highlight calls. The counterfeiting was a fake bill that was attempted to be passed, but the clerk identified that. When we start looking at our burglaries, we had some unlocked garages entered, so we just encourage the public to continue to lock up your garages, lock up your vehicles. Don't leave firearms unattended, as we did have a firearm that was stolen but recovered. So we again encourage the public to continue to lock up their items, secure the residents, secure their garages, their vehicles, and for sure secure any firearms that they have in their home or in their vehicles. So again, this weekend was busy with various festivals and activities in the downtown area. We appreciate the public coming out and supporting those events and activities. Our officers were present. We started a community outreach team, and we had officers present at Pride Fest and the Festival of Cultures this weekend. They were able to interact with everyone there and had a good time as well. So we'll continue to be involved in activities as we have in the past, but now with a dedicated community outreach team to be involved and at these events as they go on. So, do we have any questions?
Do you have any information on a house raid this morning on Duluth?
I do not have any information on that at this point. You said it was this morning?
I believe so.
Do you know approximately what time or anything?
I'm not certain.
Okay, I can check into that. So,
were you guys involved in a pursuit? I believe I was Friday night. I think it ended going south. I think it was near like Beersford off of 29. Were you guys involved in any pursuit on Friday night?
I don't believe we were involved in that. I think that was outside agencies that were involved in that. So I did not see that. Nothing else. We'll do a little digging into the incident this morning. Otherwise, that can be talked about tomorrow morning at briefing as well. So,
All right.
All right. Thank you very much.